Now again, Larry Garner
Larry
music,
Garner.
wide shot, tight to that. Hello, we're back on Sports 225. I'm Lee Feinswag visiting with Dan Borne, the voice of Tiger Stadium and other stuff, because he also does play-by-play. Well, I guess I don't know, play-by-play is not quite the right word. Public address announcing for basketball, which is more of a play-by-play. You actually say a lot more during a basketball game because there's so much more interaction. There's so many more substitutions and so many more
Exactly. There's
plays.
there's a lot going on, and you know they know where you are at a basketball arena. They can find you.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
if you mess up, they know exactly where you are. At football, you just this voice because we're way up in the south side of the stadium. So
all right, so you bring up an interesting subject, which
Yeah.
is, of course, in football, you have your binoculars, you see, you know the game, although you don't have as good a seat as you used to have.
No,
let's get to that. Yeah, let's get to that in a second. When
right.
you went from like the 50 to the
Right.
to the end zone.
Right.
Okay, so the chances of screwing it up though are much less. Whereas in basketball, and you know when you make the mistakes in basketball
in a
because you
minute.
look across and
Sure.
we're laughing at you.
Absolutely.
And it's basketball's hard.
Basketball's tougher because lots of substitutions, and you only get really one shot at getting it right in basketball. Because by the time it's done, you're gone. It's
Right.
not correction. But in football, several years ago when we were planning the West Upper Deck, Skip came to me. He says, "Voice," he says, "I had good news and bad news." He says, "The good news is you're going to get a new booth. It's going to be big and have lots of room. You're going to love it." He says, "Bad news is it's not on a 50. You had too good a seat. We sold it." So that whole 50 is part of
The suites down below us, or the fancy
stuff.
seats, right? Yeah,
so they have us on the they have us in the end zone, which is fine. The angle from about the north 30 though to the end zone is a little harsh, and you really have to work on your binoculars, especially when it's a big pileup. But you've got the big screen too that you can play off of as well. And then you have the Jimmy Manasseh and his people who are spotting, as are my own spotters.
Right.
So it's a little bit more difficult from about the north 30 to the end zone. But beyond that, it's great. Yeah.
Yeah, and I should explain to you what you hear when you're in the stadium is you hear what Dan says. What we hear in the press box is Jimmy Manasseh has got a crew, and they're their own entity where he does a play-by-play specific to what we get. And a little more intricate.
Yeah, and it's a stats crew. I mean, they're keeping all of these esoteric
and,
stats.
And I'll give you a good example. Like the ball might be on the 38, and the first down marker is on the 40, but it might be just a shade inside the 38. So technically, it's 3rd and 1. But since the ball's just where it is, and Dan will go, well, it's 3rd and 2.
Right.
Well, Dan's not wrong, but for statistical purposes, he's not right, and and for the technicalities of it.
Right.
But so they both do a great job, but in different ways. And when you're sitting in that press box and you can hear Jimmy go, well, it's 3rd and 1, the ball's on the and then you hear Dan go, 3rd and 2 for the Tigers, and you're like, what the heck's going on here?
Also, if the ball is between the 29 and the 30, 29 and 30, and the team with the ball is striking at the 29.5-yard line, then statistically the ball's at the 30.
Correct.
Okay. However, if the team's going the other direction, if it's between the 29 and 30, and the team with the ball is moving toward, then it's on the 29. So it's the direction of the team in terms of statistically where it is. And I can't get in all that. I just
you'll go, and you might say 3rd and inches.
Exactly.
And when it's
Exactly.
actually 3rd and 1.
It's statistically.
Yeah,
Right.
exactly.
And sometimes the penalties, as they get assessed, are 5-yard penalties. But as they work toward the field, it becomes a 4-yard penalty, as opposed to a 5-yard penalty.
It's amazing how often it seems like they count them off wrong too. Their steps and everything.
Yeah.
Have you ever found yourself, other than touchdowns, which, to your credit, you can extend the word score or touchdown very, very long time. I'm impressed with your long.
Thanks very much.
Yeah. But
Shaquille gave me a workout the other night, though. When I introduced Shaq, I introduced him the way we used to do it back in the PMAC. Oh, it like wore me out, man. All 7'1" of it,
I've known him since he was 6'11". But have you ever found yourself getting really emotional, either maybe misty-eyed and or too excited because they're doing well, or angry because they're doing poorly?
You keep it pretty. You're pro. I mean, I'm not much of a pro, but I know enough not to get too emotional about it. But I'll tell you, the games that were emotional were the first home game after Katrina, Tennessee game was really emotional because the stadium.
That was something.
Monday night.
You might have remembered it was hot and humid that day, too.
It was hot and humid, and it was a Monday night.
Yep.
And, you know, the campus, it was a war zone. I mean, we had...
Literally.
Literally. We had medevac helicopters, you know.
Well, the Pete Maravich Assembly Center was turned into basically the largest triage in the world.
Largest field hospital ever.
Yeah.
With the practice gym was the morgue. And we had athletes, you know, carrying those stretchers in there. We had to go play our first game.
Barbed wire fences around the PMAC, armed guards walking everywhere, and you know, helicopters coming right and left all the time. I mean, if you were around then, you know, and if you weren't, and then you know,
we had to play Arizona over there because we couldn't play in our own stadium. They were wonderful to us, and then we came back and we had Rita that delayed it again. So finally Monday, and you know, that stadium for that 3-hour period, these folks that had gone through absolute terror, were living in cardboard boxes, had nowhere to go. They were all, you know, 90,000 of them came to that stadium.
Yep.
And we got beat, but it wasn't about getting beat. It was about victory over the elements.
And that was the first game of the Les Miles' career here, wasn't it?
Yeah. Yes, it was.
And you know, for those of us lucky enough not to have lost anything except for electricity and a ton of branches, you know, where I live, and I think yours is kind of the same way.
Exactly.
But it was still, we were all just so drained.
We were drained.
Yeah, the heat alone, without having air conditioning, of course, and then the emotional toll. I did a lot of work for USA Today, and in fact, I remember covering that whole day for USA Today. And when I went home that night, I was just a vegetable. Yeah. You know, I just remember just thinking.
I think the same thing happened to everybody. The team just ran out of gas.
Yeah,
it just ran out of gas. But it was a success because folks who had gone through a terrible time, everyone got together, and for 3 hours, all that was forgotten. They just watched football. And then the Virginia Tech game. After the massacre at Virginia Tech, they're coming to Baton Rouge to play. Yeah. Very, very emotional game. Met with their fans in the field house along with Chancellor O'Keefe at the time, extending, you know, what you extend when that happens. But that game was very emotional too.
All right, we got to take this last break. When we get back, ask you some favorite games, favorite athletes, that kind of stuff.
Sure.
Dan Borne, he's the public address announcer for LSU football and basketball. I'm Lee Feinswag, the public address announcer for Sports 225, and we'll be right back.